Hello, I'm State Representative Jeannine Notter, and this is not Chatting with Jeannine. I'm sitting in a different seat because I'm here to introduce a new host to Merrimack TV and a new program called The Real American. So here's your host, Tracy Coyer.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Both.
Both. I'm Tracy Coyer. I've been here in Merrimack for just about 20 years, and I've really enjoyed being here. And a few years ago, I took a run as a state representative. That was 2012, I believe it was. And it was an unsuccessful attempt, but I took some time and thought about it and started hosting a radio show about 3 years ago that's available on another network. And here I am now, making another run for it after watching what's going on in the country and seeing everything that's been taking place. Decided that it's time to get involved again. So here I am to get involved. I hope you get to know me. I hope you get to like me. I hope you like to watch me. And if you don't, that's fine. I'll be okay.
Well, thank you for stepping up to run for state representative again. I know back in 2012 when you ran, we used to have very crowded primaries with a lot of people. So there are only like some X amount of seats open for all the people that were running for it. So now, there's less people in the field.
I think I stand a pretty good chance this time. I mean, having been here as long as I have now, I've gotten to know a lot more people. I mean, in 2012, I had only been here 7 years, and I had a certain circle of people that I was familiar with, and that circle has grown. I've done a lot of other things since I've been here and since then, and have developed a lot more experience and a lot more opinions. Most people don't have to wonder what I'm thinking if they actually know me, so you're going to know what I think.
You'd be surprised when you talk to voters how many don't realize that there's different governments. We have town government, we have state government, we have federal government, and they're not all the same. And we don't just live in a bubble of Merrimack, New Hampshire. We live in a state with bigger issues. And we even have some that don't think the border crisis is an issue. I'm like, oh, yes, it is.
It certainly is. It certainly is. When we've got over 25,000 Chinese nationals crossing over into the United States just in the last 6 to 9 months, and when you realize, well, that doesn't sound like a horrible large number, but you also have to understand that the Chinese government doesn't just let people leave. So all of those people that have come here have been allowed in on the quote-unquote parole system. Most of them are military-age male. They all got here through the sanctioning of leaving China, and China has said none of the illegals, if you will, can be returned to China. They're here to stay, and we're stuck with them. And I believe the statistics from 3 or 4 years ago, I believe there were less than 500 Chinese nationals that transferred over to the U.S. That's something to definitely be worried about.
Right. That's not just the Chinese. There are just millions of people crossing the border every day, unvetted. Most of them are military-age men. And what are they doing here? What are their intentions? Nobody knows. And it is, every state has become a border state. I've been down to the border twice, and I talked to the Border Patrol. I talked to the sheriffs in that area, and it is a very, very serious issue. And now we're hearing reports that some states are giving the illegals ballots, signing them up to vote. So there you go. Now we know why the border's open.
And people forget, especially being in New Hampshire, that we actually have a border with Canada. And it's not just the southern border that's the problem. The northern border's almost quadrupled. And when they were releasing the bus loads of we'll call them migrants, just to be politically correct for a moment. It'll probably be my last time I call them that. But we had 3 bus loads come to Manchester, New Hampshire. People don't know that.
Oh, I did a show on that. They're actually
really?
being flown in as well.
They were flown in as well.
From the southern border.
Yeah, and I think that the most amusing thing about I'm saying, well, let's just send them off. And then when the governor governor of Florida,
DeSantis,
sent them
yes.
to Martha's
Martha's
Vineyard,
Vineyard.
that's when everybody had a problem, because now it was affecting them directly.
Yeah, all of a sudden their welcoming community wasn't so welcoming.
Yeah, all the little people are not the only ones being affected anymore. And now we just look at what's going on around us, and let's go to the colleges for just a few minutes. A sovereign country is attacked by a nation's, it's technically not even a nation state, but everybody says, well, the Israelis have been occupying Gaza. Well, they've been crying for a two-state solution for years. So I believe it was 2006, Israel signed over the entire Gaza Strip to the Palestinians so that they could elect and enact their own government. And they elected Hamas, of all things. And now people say, well, everybody's got to protect the people of Gaza. The people of Gaza are being slain by Hamas, not by Israel. And they say, well, we need a ceasefire immediately. There was a ceasefire on October 6th. And the only people that have ever violated that ceasefire since the early 2000s have been the Palestinians, more specifically Hamas. So to see the protests on the college and have people stand up and say, we've got to end the occupation of Gaza. There is no occupation of Gaza. We are not slaughtering Gazan civilians. They have a political group that maintains their military headquarters in tunnel systems underneath schools, hospitals, civilian areas. Everything they do is underground so that they can look and say, oh my goodness, they're attacking the civilians trying to get to the military. They're being used as human shields. They're not actually free citizens. Israel did something unprecedented before they started their actual assault on Gaza. What they did is they notified the people of Gaza that they were coming. They gave them the opportunity to leave. Hamas would not let any of the civilians leave. There were a few that were, managed to get out, but the majority of them were kept there so that they could make Israel look bad. And now we look around at our colleges and our universities, and we see people that are, pro-Hamas. They say, well, we're pro-Palestinian. No, you're pro-Hamas because the Israelis are pro-Palestinian. There are more Palestinians living in Israel than there are Christians. And that's the only country in the world where Muslims, Christians, and Jews all live perfectly calm, in perfect harmony, except for being attacked from Gaza on a regular basis. And to watch the absolute ignorance, and that's exactly what it is, ignorance of people supporting a group that murders, rapes, sexual torture. They actually put babies in ovens.
I heard that. They cut their heads off.
It's horrifying. And
burned them up, tortured little children.
Some of the poor girls that were there were saying, just shoot me, just kill me. And they started with, hundreds of hostages anyway. And with the most recent ceasefire agreement, they wanted 50 hostages back in exchange for several hundred Palestinian prisoners that were all convicted of terrorism and murder. But we'll just give them back because, what are they going to do? They're nice enough people. They just, they didn't have a puppy when they were kids, so they'll be fine. But to see the absolute stupidity of these people supporting terrorists like that, that would be like when we were attacked on 9/11 and everybody saying, well, you can't strike back. You can't strike back at the people that just killed, 3,300 Americans. Why not? Why not? And what happened in Israel was worse than our 9/11 on a per capita basis. I mean, it would have been an equivalent to 500,000 Americans being killed. I mean, there's only 8 million Jews left in Israel right now. The number is very, very low. I mean, Hitler did a good
Tiny
job.
little country, tiny little country surrounded by enemies.
Yeah. And when we had our former president, he had the Abraham Accords going. Everything was calming down, calming down. All the funding to the Iran regime and all of their Iranian-backed militias was absolutely choked off. And now we have a president and a White House, and not the only president that's done this. Don't misunderstand me. Mr. Obama is certainly not faultless in this. But to have things released and then deliver pallets of money to them and then unfreeze their bank accounts. Well, it's only for humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid. So if you give a terrorist group money and they're using the money they have to buy food and protect their people, that's fine. You give them more money, they're just going to take the money you give them, and they're going to use the money they were using for that, and then they're going to take the money that they used to use for their people, and they're going to create terror cells, buy bombs. Fortunately, they're not so brilliant with their equipment. We saw that when they attacked Israel, where was it 1% of the bombs made it through that night that they attacked. It's sad to watch, and we're getting a little worse than we were in '68 during Vietnam at Columbia. I mean, to see them break in, smash windows, and then wrap chains around the doors so that people can't get out.
They won't let the Jewish students go to class.
They won't. They're blocking. And I watched the video, and it was absolutely terrifying that this one guy is trying to go through it. He happens to be wearing a Star of David. I mean, he's not a little guy. He's obviously pretty athletic. But the more he tried to push, the more he was surrounded, and he was completely prevented from going to a place that it's one of the most expensive colleges in the country.
Mm-hmm. I saw that video.
And I mean, $90,000 a year, roughly, give or take, to send your child to that school and then have them not even be able to attend classes, not have them be protected, and not to have somebody stand up and say, this is wrong, well, we're just going to let them go. Well, Governor DeSantis didn't put up with that. He already
Said that you'll be
took
deported,
care of his problem down there.
Expelled and deported.
Governor Abbott in Texas shut down the protest at was it Austin State?
Texas, was it Texas A&M?
It was in Austin, whichever one it was, but it was all busted up. And looking at the map this morning, there's a college in New Hampshire that's actually active in these protests, and I didn't see exactly where it was, but I did see the little New Hampshire state up there, and a little red dot. It looked like it was on the Vermont
Dartmouth, maybe?
Probably Dartmouth, but I can't say that for sure. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that. But when is it going to end? And how is it going to end?
Although it's just awful. The world is in a terrible place right now. I just did a show on antiquities trafficking, and the guest said that Hamas is looting archaeological sites and selling the things that they find, mummies and antiquities, to buy arms.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like, wow, and it's like widespread antiquity trafficking.
It's the same thing that the Germans did in the 1930s.
Yeah, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it.
That's right. And
so people have forgotten the past, and we're seeing it all happen again.
And we have an administration currently that can't stand up against any of them because, A, we funded them, and we're pumping our money into, the Ukraine. Doesn't really matter how you feel.
But the mean tweets are gone. Remember, it's all about feelings and mean tweets. We had to stop the mean tweets.
And we're still getting some pretty good tweets from them. I'm actually kind of enjoying it. And it seems that every one of these things that they do completely backfire on them. I mean, they threw Trump off of Twitter, and then, they just basically decimated his entire social media platform. So he creates his own.
If they could do this to a former president of the United States, they can do this to anyone.
I'm going to tell you
don't
something
agree
that
with them.
I didn't tell you when I ran last time. When I announced my candidacy in, I believe it was June of 2012, my paperwork went in. The primary was in September. I got my first IRS audit dated back to 2010 and then 2011. And here we are in 2024, and I have had an audit every year since I ran. So we're going on 14 years now.
Whoa.
Soft audits still, I mean, they're not showing up at my house. I'm retired, I'm disabled, so it's not like I make a ton of money. But you're going through every single one of my accounts on a regular basis. I'm in that group where, why would you even bother auditing me? Because the difference would be like $30. Well, there were a couple of years that they actually had to send me money because I don't mind paying. I don't mind paying a little bit more. I don't deduct half the things. I mean, like most people, well, I have my home office deduction. I don't touch any
Yeah,
of
we
that
don't
stuff
do
because
that
it's
either.
a red
And
flag.
we do have a home office we use.
It's, you know, my entire basement is my wife's office for her job. And, you know, she's, well, we can write this off. It's like, we have personal belongings down here, i.e. a refrigerator, a shower, a TV, and a bedroom that used to belong to my mother before she passed away. So there's no way that I'm even going to cross into those waters. And I don't write off my cell phones. I don't write off my internet.
No, neither do we. Wow.
But all of those things are legitimate deductions. And I'm sure that we had some health difficulties in the family over the past couple of years. And I'm sure I'm going to get really scrutinized because of the excessive medical bills we had over the past couple of years. I mean, when you've got an ambulance bill that's $3,480, that's a little bit outrageous, but you know, that's fine. And under the fine healthcare system we have, I mean, I have very good medical insurance from the city that I used to represent as a public servant. And I used to have a maximum $500 out-of-pocket expense per year. That's gone almost tenfold up.
Everybody's hurting.
And
In
my
this
premiums
economy,
haven't gone
everybody's
down.
hurting.
You know, and it's been every year. Oh, Obamacare is going to be the best thing in the world. For
would be the worst.
who? Do you really believe the government, when they step in and do something, are going to make things cheaper and more efficient?
No.
Don't think that's ever happened. You know, I remember back, God, in the 1980s when the post office said, you know, instead of doing the 2-cent increase in stamps this year, we're going to do a 5, and then we're never going to need to raise rates again.
Oh, yeah. And who believed that?
Okay. So now they have the forever stamp. I'm surprised they don't put dates on those so they're not forever anymore.
Don't give them any ideas.
No, well, no.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can find ways to waste our money.
Well, there's like a ton of issues out there. So this is your first show, and this is kind of an introduction so people can get to know you. But I hope that you'll continue your show and have more issues come up. And
Oh, I'm sure we will. And just to give everybody a little bit more background, I spent 20 years as a law enforcement officer, specifically police, in Central Mass. And when I moved here in 2005, and did eventually retire in 2006, so I've been retired now for 18 years. The one thing that I did not want to see happen was Massachusetts politics brought to New Hampshire. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. We're seeing everybody that wants to get away from the high taxes, the high regulations, the Boston, Worcester-based, you know, economies, and they're bringing them right here. I mean, New Hampshire used to be one of the reddest states in the country. Yeah. Not so much anymore. So that's one of the things that, you know, I want people to understand. And whenever they propose something that sounds like a great idea, you have to think, who's it a great idea for? Now, we're forgiving student loans, even though the Supreme Court said you can't do it. Well, they've managed to find a way around it, of course.
Yeah.
And what about the people that went to college and paid their student loans? What about the people that went to college and worked all the way through college so they didn't have to take out student loans. When I went to Worcester State back in, I won't date myself, but it was $550 a semester. It's not $550 anymore.
$550 a week. Well, I hear the other side of the aisle talking about, oh, we want to lower property tax. Okay, but their idea to do that is to create an income tax. And just what happens in every other state that did this, New Jersey, for example, okay, maybe they lowered it for a little bit, but then they just keep raising it, and now you have two taxes. You can't tax anyone into prosperity. So when you hear somebody talking about how they're going to lower property tax, ask them, oh yeah, and how are you going to do that? Mm-hmm. Because if their solution is an income tax, that's going to make things even worse.
Absolutely. I remember when Massachusetts passed Proposition 2.5, I believe that was 1979. They could never tax you more than 2.5% of your property's value.
We had Proposition 13 in California. I was a kid, and I remember that. Yeah,
well,
that did lower the property taxes. But
it did.
But it stopped a lot of the free stuff. You know, like you could no longer go to gymnastics free.
Our indoor track programs were cut out. Some of our basketball, a lot of our athletic programs were gone. And they always find ways to bring the money back. And, you know, let's raise your excise tax. Thank goodness we don't have an excise tax here. We do have a personal property tax for vehicles and so on, that, you know, your registration fee, if you will, every year, which is not outrageous compared to, you know, the states that surround us. But all of a sudden, they needed more money, and then every city is passing a Proposition 2.5 override because, well, the school department needs more money. Well, the fire department needs more money.
And where's it go?
You need
line by
to
line
stop
item. We need to see exactly where are they spending the money, like line by line item.
It's. I just look and laugh, and you know, you go back to Reagan, and you hear him say the most dangerous words an American
from the
can
government,
hear,
and I'm here to help.
Well, believe me when I tell you, our founding fathers are turning over in their graves right now. And we look at the freedoms that have been incrementally taken away. And I would like to say this publicly. I never want to see us shut down again. I never want to be told that I have to wear a mask. When they close down local businesses, but keep the Walmart open, keep the Lowe's open, keep the Shaw's open, but you know, all your corner businesses, you can't get your hair cut. All over a blatant lie. And if you spoke out against the fact that, well, you know, this was, you know, an engineered virus, oh, you were blackballed, you were banned, you were ridiculed, well, it turns out there's evidence pointing to the fact that this was all man-made. And don't think it's going to be the last time they do something like this. I wouldn't be surprised to see something radical happen before November of this year. Nothing that these people do would surprise me ever again.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry for the doom and gloom.
Oh, that's all right. It's a doom and gloom world we live in. I mean,
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. If people would just follow the golden rule, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Treat people the way you want to be treated. I'm not going to go off onto a spiritual tangent. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Jewish. Believe whatever you want to believe. Don't ram it down my throat, but do no harm. That's it. Do no harm. And now the big thing that they're pressing all over the United States is, you know, Roe versus Wade was struck down, and you know, we need to pass a federal law to you know, make an abortion ban at 16 weeks. Well, first off, Roe versus Wade never should have been decided the way it was.
A lot of people don't know what Roe versus Wade is. They think that it just banned abortion, but no, it sent it back to the states. So in New Hampshire, the law is, and this needs to get out there because a lot of the voters were lied to. It says they were told we banned abortion, and I'm like, no, 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 no. After 6 months, but there's exceptions. If there's something medically wrong, something wrong with the child, they can still have an abortion. But you have half a year. Okay, 6 months is half a year. Half a year to decide if you want to keep your child or not. And even if the child is viable before 6 months, that means they could live outside the womb. Still legal, still legal. It's only illegal for the late term, and that's with exceptions. So if the child's healthy, it's too late. You had half a year. It's too late.
Any power not specifically given to the federal government in the Constitution is reserved for the states. Period. That's the way the Constitution is written. If you want to change something, change it. Pass an amendment. You cannot get a Democrat and a Republican to agree that it's noontime on Thursday if it's noontime on Thursday. They'll debate that with you to the very end because it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to be wrong.
But it's always 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh, that's true. And it's usually 5 o'clock on my porch.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad place to be. But I hope that I've answered your questions, or some of them. I hope that you people have gotten to know me. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again, and I hope you're looking forward to seeing me. Jeannie, why don't you tell me what you think?
Well, we only have a minute left, so I like to see you have lots of guests and a wide variety of topics, and talk about fun stuff too.
Fun stuff. Oh, I'd love to do a whole show on just the greatest series on Netflix.
And what's that?
Oh, there's thousands of them. I'm watching one right now that's actually pretty impressive. Stranger Things was great. I was very sorry when that ended.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've been doing White Collar, which was apparently 6 seasons. It's a fantastic show. Watching one right now that, and the name escapes me. We'll have to save that for the next one. But we've got about 15, 20 seconds left, so let me just say, Merrimack, it's a pleasure to meet you. If you run into me on the street, please say hello, and I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you personally. Thank you.